One of the most common things we see in youth football today is a plateau phase. It happens when young footballers are the best in their team. They're 7, 8 years old, they're dominating every fixture. They're faster, they're fitter, they're striking the ball better, and they're just generally all round a better player at 7 or 8 years old than the rest of their peers. However, unfortunately, a lot of times that can become a plateau phase where they get to around 11, 12 years old. Everyone's caught them up physically, and there's a difficult period there where they're maybe catching up physically and struggling to keep pace with the rest of the group that they once were miles ahead of. I've worked with hundreds of players over the years, and so many times we've seen players who are absolutely in this bracket of thriving when they're younger, and as they get older, they struggle. I can think of one player in particular who were under 6, was scoring 50, 60 goals a season, all the way through to when he was at under 9s. He was still big and strong, he was playing 7-a-side football, he played on the right wing, and every week the ball was either in behind and he was running onto it and scoring, or you could play the ball into him, he'd win his physical duels, he'd find a way to turn, and he'd score goals for fun. He was doing that for my teams, he was doing that for his grassroots teams, he was doing it for his schools teams. However, when he came into us at a later date again, at age 11 or 12, we realised that physically he'd been caught up on. Technically he'd not lost any of that attribute, but the physical demands and the physical challenges became so great that it looked like he'd lost those technical attributes. He couldn't quite control the ball as quickly as he could. He couldn't quite win the duels like he could. When he came into us, he was shot of confidence, and he knew that his previous elite, we should say, mindset and elite performance had diminished completely. And at age 12, he really struggled to get himself back to that point. We spent a lot of time working on his physical attributes. We spent a lot of time working on him not plateauing and helping him grow and helping him build as a player and as an athlete. And it took a lot of patience, it took a lot of time. But at age 14, 15, when he could start to grow again and to catch up those peers that had overtaken him, his confidence skyrocketed. He was more than happy with his performances. He was ecstatic at the chances he was getting at academy trials with pro clubs looking at him again. He had that at a younger age group, he was getting it at an older age group. And it was great to see that full circle moment of a player who was thriving, was struggling, and then went back to being a thriving player. Younger players, improvement comes really quick. So they are able to develop their technical ability loads. They have thousands of touches on the ball, and they're able to see a clear and obvious progression through their technical training, if they're coached well, that is. They see themselves with lots of touches of the ball, lots of skill development, lots of encouragement from their coaches, and their sessions are all built around development and helping them improve. However, as we all know in grassroots football and other football settings, that can drop massively as they get to age 11, 12, sometimes up to 13, where it becomes more about winning and tactics, and that's where the negative comments can creep in. That's where the negative feelings about performance can creep in, and those physical disadvantages become massive. Players start to play against kids that are sometimes twice their size. You end up with players who are built like men at 13, 14, and some players are still stuck at that 10, 11-year-old physique. We know they're going to grow, we know they're going to get bigger, we know they're going to get better, and it's having that confidence as the coach to allow them to develop in that team and around those players. But the issue we're talking about here is how we can help those people, how we can help those players develop when they hit that phase and in that moment, rather than always waiting for them to grow. So the real reason why development slows is different in each player, but generally across the board you can see a constant, and that is physicality. So a lot of players, like we mentioned at the start, they can be 7, 8 years old, by far the best player, by far the fastest, by far the strongest, kicking it hardest. Literally everything they do is just the best in their team. However, like we mentioned, as they get older, that plateau can happen, and it's the physical imbalances that really make them struggle. So what do people typically do? Well, the obvious answer is more football, more training, more touches of the ball, which is great, again, when they're at that younger age group. But as they get older, we know the physical demands is what's holding them back. A lot of parents will put them into one-to-one sessions. They might think that they need to join an extra team and get extra training each week, which none of these things are going to deviate from their ability on the ball. They're still going to make them better if they've got good coaches. However, the crux and the real reason that they're falling behind is that physical ability to keep up with their peers. The way we can counter that is by working on those physical and strength attributes at that younger age when the plateau is about to begin. We can see it happening. You can see that when they get to 11, 12, they're still small, they're starting to struggle a little bit. That's when we need to spot the problem and try and get involved with our strength conditioning coaching, our physical assessments, our injury prevention, and to help them develop every other aspect apart from the things that are uncontrollable, which is their rate of growth, their height, their weight. So the way we can counter that is by finding it early. So you should be able to anticipate and see when your child has gone from being that absolute main player in the squad to maybe dropping down and struggling a little bit more with the group generally, especially on a physical level. By getting it early, we can then decide what the next steps will be. These next steps generally are to introduce some form of strength training in their day, even if we think they are not quite developed enough for like a gym setting, lifting weights. That's not the kind of work we're talking about at this moment. We're looking at the explosive dynamic work, the plyometric work. There's so much more detail in our videos with Dave to do with strength conditioning for younger players, with Ollie in his videos to do with our injury prevention and our rehab work and prehab. However, it's really important as a basic level, just for the sake of this video, to talk about the ways we can train strength, train power, train dynamism without a gym, without weights, and without extra equipment that maybe we don't have. The way we do that is by looking at our plyometrics, our bouncing power, our jumping power, our explosive power. Can you jump for the ball and challenge for a header? Can you explode forward and drive forward on the pitch? Can you, in a duel, not be knocked off just because someone's taller than you and maybe heavier than you? Can you stick your feet in the ground, really move, use your weight, really pin yourself to the floor and make sure that you are really hard to knock off the ball? Think about small players throughout history. Think about your Lionel Messi's. He's always the example. Smaller player, slight in stature, but able to dig in, work hard in duels when he's under pressure, and then find a way out, even against bigger, stronger, much heavier players. All the elite players we see, all the academy players at your children's age groups, they can cover the ground required consistently through repetition, through physical attributes, but also through sheer determination and work outside of the pitch. Key work such as running sessions, endurance sessions, being able to put that extra work in and know that maybe tonight I don't do a one-to-one session, maybe tonight I don't do that extra team training that's not massively benefiting me. Can I instead incorporate some strength work, some speed work, something that's going to get me pushed to my limits in a setting that's not with a football? And those are the things that are going to push us on to help us close that gap between the physically better players and physically stronger players and those smaller technical players that are trying to bridge that gap in physicality. What should parents and players focus on now as a specific point? So what we don't want to do is have an overarching idea of I want to be stronger, I want to be faster, I want to be fitter. We need actionable steps, a system that can get us to develop each of those attributes on its own. And there are so many things you can do at home to ensure that we are working on those aspects. Below this video is a link to our Elite Development Player Guide, which helps you on the starting blocks of strength conditioning and speed. So if you are watching this video and thinking this is definitely something we need to work on, that can really help you plan out your week. So today we've talked about that gap that comes from many footballers aged 11 to 13, those players that were massively thriving at a younger age group and maybe struggling now they've got a little bit older onto these bigger pitches. Well, something we've not touched on is the psychology of this and the effect it can have on a footballer. It can be a very detrimental effect for a player to see that when they used to be the main player, the main goal scorer, the main athletic ability on the pitch has now been diminished. It's a struggle to get that confidence back and to keep having that confidence to try things that maybe you used to find easy and are now struggling with. Things such as big, strong duels against bigger players. Things such as putting yourself in a position to win a 50-50 and to go into a challenge with someone you think maybe is too big. Those situations where you've got a foot race to get onto to recover or be on the ball, and instead of that, you chop back, use a teammate, not quite confident enough to run those races and to be in those duels. The psychology of this is what can hold players back even longer. And what we really need to do is make sure that psychologically we're confident, we're pushing ourselves, and we're trying our best to stay in that positive mindset, that elitist mindset that we are good enough to be here, we are strong enough to be here, and we're doing everything we can outside of the pitch to keep that working. Below this video, we also have a PDF based on sports psychology, how to set goals, how to manage goals, and how to keep them realistic. So if you're interested in that and you think that maybe this is something holding you back in your physical challenges, feel free to go and download that right now. Today we talked about that plateau that can happen from younger players who are thriving to slightly older players who are maybe struggling. Hopefully this video has given you some clarity on the problems that might arise and the things that we've got as part of Route 1 to help you solve them. We recommend a program like this to all players, whether you're thriving, whether you're struggling, to keep on top of your physical attributes that are keeping you ahead, or to close that gap on the physical attributes keeping you behind. Below, you can click to book a call with any of our Route 1 coaches, any of our experts, to help you get yourself to the point where you want to be.